All right, welcome back to Statement Games Live. My name's Nathan. I'm joined with Mark, CEO of StatementGames.com. Mark, how are you doing?
Doing all right, man. How's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. I guess, the major topic on everyone's mind right now is, the business is so tied to how you feel as a fan. So, how'd the Rangers do? Are you past the funk you were in last week?
We're starting off here again, huh?
Yeah.
Hey, look. I guess the mood was it's been pretty kind of like foul. I don't really make any secrets about it. I'm a diehard New York Rangers fan, and I think when you are perceived to be getting older, you think that little things like this they don't bother you,
Yeah.
but but they do. So for those of you who aren't necessarily huge kind of like hockey fans, the New York Rangers were eliminated from 2021 Stanley Cup contention
Ooh.
earlier this week. There was a lot of kind of like drama on that. What was it? The Tuesday night game against the Washington kind of like Capitals, in which Tom Wilson completely kicked the crap out of uh, Artemi Panarin. Actually, I think that was that Monday night, and the follow up game was when they played back to back here. I have it up right here. Let me just kind of like get the dates correct here. So it was Monday, May 3rd, in which all this kind of stuff kind of like happened. I mean, Wilson is a talented player, but he's a tough guy. He's a
Mhm.
tough guy. There was a little bit of a scrum kind of like in front of the net, and Ben Aaron just got tossed kind of like a ragdoll. As I'm not saying there was a result of it, but shortly like after that, the Rangers had actually fired their legendary team president, long-time kind of like a broadcaster, John Davidson, with the team for a number of different years, well-respected guy, big kind of like a hockey guy, had kind of like gone on and been an instrumental part of teams like the St. Louis Blues, rebuilding that organization more recently with the Columbus Blue Jackets, and yeah, kind of like came home less than 2 years ago to take the helm of hockey operations for the Rangers, and basically got bounced along with
Wow.
the GM. And we'll kind of like see what happens since the season officially came to the end. It came to an end yesterday. We'll see what kind of happens with the coach. But Chris Drury has been promoted to president as well as GM of the team. Glenn Sather, who's been a longtime advisor and has had the ear of team owner Jim Dolan for a number of different years, is back in a more strategic, kind of like more active advisory role, and we'll see what happens. But I think
Mm.
if I'm having like a little bit of fun with it here, I guess the reason for this stuff, I don't think it. Well, I guess what the report has been is that this is something that's actually been discussed within the team owners circles for a while. A lot of people are kind of like happy with it. It definitely took the sports world kind of like by storm. But look, I mean, the owner of the team lives on a Long Island. The longtime rivals of the New York Rangers, which is the New York Islanders, have been having some pretty decent success lately. So when you hear kind of like all that stuff, and when you actually go ahead and take a look at what had taken place on the 20th of April, um, uh, fucking people just interrupting kind of like the stream here, like, well,
Mhm.
fucking enough here. And then people wonder why I'm in a foul mood all the fucking time here
Yep, yep.
in the office trying to do stuff.
Right. There
Anyway,
you go.
so getting back into my train of thought, the point being is that regardless of how well things seem to be kind of like going, right? When you play your longtime rivals and you basically get trounced 6-1, and that kind of like puts a damper on your playoff hopes here, and obviously at that time there's a chance for people to go ahead and rebound, but your owner takes note of that, and you follow that up with two additional games against those rivals in which you're going, in which you get shut out, 4-0 and 3-0. So a total of those three games against kind of like your rivals, 6-1, 4-0, 3-0, for a total of basically 13-1 over a 3 game span. Then basically you get your butts kicked again on home ice against the Capitals. In that process here, your star um, gets hurt in a scrap and is out for the remainder of the year. You lose that game 6-3. I actually can actually go back to the fact that in the bubble when they did kind of make that kind of semi playoff run here, competitive kind of hockey, you pretty much got trounced 3 games to nothing against the Carolina kind of Hurricanes. So although it's a young team, you kind of getting better. But when things like this happen, you're gonna have to actually have a conversation with somebody because what the heck's actually going
Mhm.
on here? It's one thing to kind of lose, but to not be able to compete at that type of a level is going to raise kind of eyebrows. I'm not saying that these individuals deserve to be fired, but you're going to have a conversation. And if you don't
Mhm.
actually have the right answers to those conversations, this is a kind of a result of what happened. So, in a long, kind of winded way, if I transition that into the business sense of things here, I don't care if you're a high school student, a college student, or somebody kind of within an organization that's performed reasonably well over an extended kind of period of time, or in kind of professional sports. When you're being asked to compete at the highest level, even though you've actually had some success and things may have seemed to be kind of going to go in the right direction here. If you put up kind of numbers like that and in prime time spots here, you need to have conversations with people. If you don't necessarily have the right answers to the questions that either your boss or your owner or your instructor or teacher has to kind of offer, guess what? You're either getting kicked out of school or fired or suspended and going from there. It may not necessarily sound right or fair, but that's just the reality of business as a whole, not only just in sports, but in life and as well as in business.
Mm. So let's take this New York Rangers rant to the next step. Boom Fantasy Sports built the MSG app. Would the fortune of this team be different if they had chosen Statement Games as their platform developer?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
100%. It would have been kind of been better. The
So team
mojo would have been
president wouldn't
better.
have been fired. They
Yeah,
would be on a winning
everybody
streak.
would have been, yes, correct. The I guess what do you want to call it, mojo that I would have been able to bring to the organization
Yeah.
would have been that much better. I mean, I guess in their defense here, I guess I never really had an official opportunity to throw my hat into the ring, but
Yep.
it's not like we haven't had conversations with the people at MSG before. They were kind of aware of what we're actually doing. I don't think at the time in their defense, our value proposition around white label solutions or services that we were offering as a platform developer around our unique twist around fantasy sports what was fully vetted. But yeah, I'm going to throw this on management. I mean, if we were
Oh,
actually
yeah.
selected, or if we had an opportunity to do those things for them here, complete different set of circumstances the team would have gone through as a result of the great vibes and will and mojo we would have been able to pass over to the team.
Would you say that would have been like the first bad decision that team president had made by not going with you guys?
I'm
That
not
that
sure if he was
started the
actually
bad
making those types
decisions?
of, but I think, I mean, yeah, I mean, you figure, I mean, it was kind of COVID, so I want to say our conversations with them were very, very early stage, and it was probably October, November of 2019. So, of
Mm,
course, as you made the stretch into what, February of 2020, March of 2020 was when everything shut down. So I
yeah.
think there was definitely a set of disconnect. But in my defense here, my main particular contact, not going to mention any names at MSG, was based in the New York area. He was in the process of moving out to LA to, I guess, spearhead and kind of vet out something that was a little bit more in line of I guess MSG's esports initiatives.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure if this type of topic was really on his radar screen or if he was actually giving the opportunity the full attention that it actually deserved. Then as a result, you can kind of see what happened.
Yep.
All kind of downhill from there. Team gets swept by the Carolina Hurricanes 3-0 as play kind of resumed to conclude the 2019-2020 season. A lot of good kind of stuff took place. Great kind of draft picks by the organization. A lot of improvement the team was actually made here, but when it comes down to competing with the upper echelon, I guess, teams and level of talent within the NHL organization, they shit the bed, and I would have been able to correct that immediately through statement
Gotcha.
games. What are you going to do?
Mhm. So, what do you think is the biggest difference between Boom and statement games?
I think I guess there's two things that I would actually go ahead and point to. One, look, those guys are, great. We're trying to emulate them in the sense that, hey, look, you know what, they've done good stuff in kind of powering a B2C brand that was a little bit more focused on traditional elements of fantasy sports. And then kind of made a transition after an acquisition. I'll have to go back and check my notes again here. It was either FanDuel or DraftKings, but one of those organizations had acquired them. And they, since then have been kind of platform developers for, um, you know, other media companies, broadcast companies, teams, we're networks, and I think we're trying to emulate that same type of model. But in terms of differences here, one, our game is different in terms of the games that we actually power. We can claim that we've invented a new form of fantasy sports for the
Mhm.
form of our patents. So from a gaming perspective, that's I guess the biggest difference. But on the back end, from a platform development perspective, um, we have a lot more tools that are kind of more geared towards data collection as well as more technologies, basically being able to execute kind of on the data strands that we're picking up on the back end as a result of people making picks and engaging with the aim of the product. So I guess those would be the two things. More, I guess, services in areas of more tech as well as the
Mhm.
IP kind of around our game.
Gotcha. Interesting. So there was some acquisition news within the industry regarding Genius. Would you like to go into that a little bit and what that means?
Sure, I'll go ahead and there's a couple of different press releases that have actually come out here, so I'll drop those links in the comment section below. But I mean, basically, very kind of well respected kind of organization within the I guess sports kind of gaming space. But it's just another example of a free to play gaming provider being acquired. So FanHub was acquired
Mhm.
by Genesis at a high level. I think it really continues to validate the story, the narrative that we're putting out in the market, and that there is a big opportunity within the space for free to play kind of gaming providers.
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, what do you
Yeah.
think? I mean, I'm not sure if you had a chance to take a look at that, but at a high level, I really believe. I mean, look, we've seen kind of that FanHub free to play gaming provider being acquired kind of by Genesis. We pretty much beat the drum extensively a couple of months back here about the Bally's acquisition of Monkey
Mhm.
Knife Fight, another platform provider, and how there's other deeper synergies that are taking place with other media components such as Connecticut Sinclair. And I think the one thing that we should actually expect here is more opportunities and more deals like this to be taking place within our industry and vertical. And as I said here, it really just validates even more what it is that we're doing over here.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I think that, anytime there's a similar transaction of another company that, represents similar ideals as yours, I think that gains credibility to what you're doing and where you're heading and ultimately that's your end goal, getting to that point where you're taking um someone's interested in you and what you're doing. So,
Yeah.
which speaking of all of that, going back to an update of everything that's going on with hype, what's been going on there? Any new updates?
I mean, as of today, we will have our fourth proposal kind of out into the marketplace. So at this point, we've had conversations with all of the partners, actually, I take that back. We've been in contact and had communications with pretty much like all of the partners that we were selected by, with the exception of two. As a result of that, we've got 4 proposals kind of like out to the marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
So our proposals for VRT, the PGA Tour, let's see here, ESL as well as the Zone are out the door.
Mm-hmm.
Feeling kind of like pretty good with a lot of them. Um, I'd say Sinclair and Rogers Media are 2 organizations that we haven't had much interaction with since Selection Day. And although we haven't had a one-on-one conversation or meeting with the Philadelphia Phillies, we have kind of like gone back and forth with various different Slack and email communications. There's probably an opportunity where I might meet up with them face to face, not this upcoming week, but the following week. So things are kind of like looking pretty good here. How to So was there something else that you want to ask, or should I just keep going?
Just keep going at it.
All right. So yeah, that's so those are kind of like been going. They've been kind of like going good. So I mean, if I'm taking a look at everything that's going on place right now, nothing kind of like new or major with regards to some of the copyright topics that we've talked about with the PGA Tour. So all seems kind of like good from there. And it looks like our mentors behind the scenes are doing a kind of like a great job in, I guess championing the Statement Games product, obviously on our behalf, as we continue kind of like with this process. So feeling pretty good about like that opportunity. I think I actually have some stiff competition when it comes to ESL, but it was a little bit of a long shot. VRT seems to kind of like be a little interesting. I am kind of like a little concerned just because of the sense that, look, I'm a U.S. based company. They're over in Belgium, over in Europe. I'm, just thinking, really interested in working with a European company, really interested in working with a U.S. company. So thoughts like that are going through my head. But they got some, interesting takes on, I guess, their version of fantasy football, which is soccer. And we've actually exchanged a lot of ideas. And as part of our proposal, we kind of, outlined in detail what our first official iteration of our game would look like from a reality TV perspective. So it's the first time that we've gone ahead and did that. I think this fall it will be season 6 from a U.S. perspective. But over in Belgium and over in Europe, the feedback that I'm actually getting is that this show is pretty big. I'm referring to the show The Mole. I haven't actually, I take that back here. I got into like season 1. I'm going back like a couple of years here. I haven't really kind of like watched it recently. But are you familiar with The Mole? Have you watched it?
I've seen commercials. I'm not very, I don't watch a lot of reality TV. Closest thing to reality, I guess, would just be the sports.
Okay.
Most stuff I watch is scripted.
Fair enough. Well, you know what? I'll have to go back and take a look at a couple of past episodes of The Mole, given that, hey, you know what, I got time on my hands here, considering that the Rangers aren't going to be playing any playoff games here. So that's, one thing that I guess am somewhat grateful for. But no, it was just kind of like, interesting in terms of, content that we can kind of get access to. Some of the statements and some of the picks that we're coming back up, player A wins this specific challenge. So kind of like gets kicked off. XYZ betrays player D. Things like that were kind of like interesting, and actually looping in some streams of the show in the form of podcasts as well as other things like that. It was just an interesting take. I've thought about reality TV before in the past. I've never really had an opportunity to
Didn't you do
develop
something
it
with
further.
The Bachelor? I thought you did something with The Bachelor like a year or two ago.
We've always thought about it. We always kind of thought about it, and it's not like we did anything with it officially on Statement Games. We've talked about it at a high level with a couple of people, but like I have a whole kind of testing environment in addition to StatementGames.com. Now that
Yeah.
I've had like this opportunity with you, this was like our first opportunity. Let's mock this thing up within our system and see
Uh,
how it kind of plays out, behind the scenes, and that's kind of what we did. So that was kind of interesting and curious. And then I would actually say after our call with the zone, I would say that that opportunity is something that's greater than 50%. So I'm looking
nice.
forward to that as well.
That's awesome. So speaking of all that, like, where would you rank your opportunities and the possible pilots of what is most likely to happen to, what you're really kind of just taking a stab at and hoping it sticks?
I guess the one thing that I didn't mention, probably the one that I am the most confident on is with
Mm.
888 Sport. So obviously
Okay.
this is a billion-dollar organization. They control all of the gambling rights for the NFL over in Europe. They are um, they're live in New Jersey today. I would say within the next 3.5 weeks, just like we're seeing in some of these press releases that I'm kind of mentioning over here, they will also be announcing a major media deal with a U.S.
Mhm.
based media company
Okay.
next 3.5 weeks. And shortly after that, let's just kind of say mid-June, tail end of June, they will be releasing or launching a gambling related product, specifically in the state of Colorado.
Mhm.
And they are targeting statement games for integration into that into that product. So ironically, I didn't have to do an extensive amount of pitching. The guys
Mhm.
were pretty impressed with the presentation that we gave during the hype vertical. They get the product, they get the solution. They've gone in, they've tested it here. They're looking at it as a free to play product. We've actually started to have initial conversations on how this could potentially or eventually, move into a gambling product
Mhm.
or service in addition to the free to play ones here. And then we're also talking about other initiatives that are currently on their roadmap, whether it be the state of New Jersey, Iowa, Tennessee, and Michigan. Let me just check something here. Am I missing one? And Indiana. So
Mhm.
those are all, I guess, different opportunities that they're targeting. And what's interesting about that stuff, when you take a look at, and again, it goes back to address, hey, how come statement games isn't a gambling related product? Every single state has different regulatory rules and regulations. So, uh, Penn, FanDuel, DraftKings, 88 Sport, regardless of whatever it is here, it's almost like you have to create a separate product specifically for that state.
Yep.
And given the conversations that we've had with them, I'm referring to 888 Sport, there's like now six opportunities that we're being in the mix or thrown into the mix for, which although it's one company, you got to treat them as like six opportunities.
Mhm.
Just like a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about Sinclair and how they had 24, 26 now Bally Sports networks or regional outlets here. You look at all of those things as separate little, not little, but separate opportunities and deals. And the 888 Sports one is different. So I would actually prioritize that as, I'd even go that far to say that it's like 85% done.
Mhm.
I'd be shocked if nothing really came out of that. Um, so I'd go 888 Sport. I'd probably put the Zone and the PGA Tour
Okay.
um, as let's call it 2 and 2A. I'm just thinking about the same here. Feeling really strong about those opportunities, and it's not that I don't have any confidence with ESL or VRT at this specific point. It's just that one, when you're looking at ESL, it is esports. Technically,
Mhm.
I mean, I'll make the argument that it's not, but from their perspective, I would view statement games as something that's a little outside of the esports vertical.
Okay.
And then I would also kind of put the same or say the same thing about VRT. Not that I'm not confident about it, and it's not like we're not having great conversations with our contacts over there. I'm just a little cautious that this is a international organization that not only has to move forward with statement games, but there's hey look, it's two different countries kind of get involved here. So there's always things like that can come up that could deter things as you start looking to dot the i's and cross the t's.
Yeah. Absolutely. So with 888 Sport and this potential, gambling opportunity for statement games, is that something that's exciting for you? Are you looking to see where that goes, or are you hesitant at all in getting into actual monetary gambling with your fantasy sport?
No, not at all. I mean, basically, I look at it from a perspective of this is something that we've always wanted to do and had visions of doing, and something that our community has always pushed us to do. But we've always taken a step back and say, hey, look, it doesn't make sense for an organization like Statement Games to acquire the licenses that are necessary to operate as a gaming operator in these various different states. There are other partners like in 888 Sport, and where if we can just team up with them and get
Mhm.
them kind of like interested in our technology as well as the games that we've deployed here, that's the better option for us to go. So I'm not surprised by it. It's something that we hadn't anticipated. That I actually think opportunities like this would come up so quickly as an opportunity as a
Mhm.
result of being accepted into hype. No, I didn't. I kind of figured things kind of like continue to go well. Maybe we'd start seeing opportunities like this towards, I don't know, Q4 of 2021, beginning stages of 2022. But
Mhm.
I'm not going to cry over the fact that these things are popping up now as opposed to later.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So, we've been talking about hype now and all the opportunities coming from that, the potential pitches and stuff. And now you're starting to get you're forming like where this is going. And so I think my biggest question, probably the question that a lot of our audience would have is now take this 2 years down the line. Where is Statement Games at? And what is like, what are the entry points for users? What is kind of being deployed at that point, do you think, based off of, this hype accelerator?
I don't know. We'll
Yeah.
have to see. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a great question here. It's one of those things where you're getting into a position where you're trying to predict the future. I can kind of give my opinion on where I think it would go, but it looks like, hey, look, I always want to have some type of outlet or ability to create content in the form of games, as well as content kind of looking around our opinions on games and things like that taking place here. But depending on where you kind of can reside um, geographically,
Mhm.
if you're accessing statement games and you're in the state of Colorado, yeah, you'll access statement games here, but potentially the game that you're being redirected to play and make picks on might be 888 Sport.
Mhm.
And that kind of like transition is just kind of like taking place kind of like seamlessly. So there's things like that. Yeah, and where I could potentially really just be almost like a farm or a channel for people to play our games. And depending where you're at, if you're in New Jersey, you're going to go to whatever partner we have
Mhm.
integrated into Jersey. If there's more than one, there could be different kind of options that we're going. If we don't have any partners here, it would just be as is in statementgames kind of .com. But as we kind of move forward here, this is all for the better. I envision that the end user experience is getting a lot more slicker. I envision legally that you'll actually have opportunities to play the game for money, which is something that kind of comes up here. I envision the ability to play more games and where it's not just nationally televised games. So there's things like that we continue to make progress on. And yeah, it should be pretty interesting to see where we're at in the next 6 months to 2 years.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, Mark, it's a little bit shorter of an episode this week, but I think we got into a lot of really good topics here. For everyone out there, make sure you're following on all social media at Statement Games. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Statement Games Inc., as well as, obviously playing Statement Games on the website, statementgames.com, or your mobile device. Uh, Mark, I'll catch you next week. We might be getting a making picks episode in as well, um, early this week.
Sounds good. Appreciate it.
Yep, sounds good.